everybody. My name is Stacey Chanquin and I am a clinical psychologist. I am currently working at the University of the Western Cape within the student support services. So I do counseling with the students at the university. I'm also working in private practice where I see a lot of students from different schools, universities, technicons and colleges. Apart from that, I also do some individual and group therapy at a psychiatric clinic within the addictions unit. And then I do some supervision of psychology students who are completing their placements. So my colleague Jill Masters has invited me to give a brief talk on the possible impact of COVID-19 on students and specifically the matriculants of 2020. As I was thinking of this topic, I started reflecting on my own experience as a student at school and at university. And particularly looking back at my matric year, I recall many fond memories. I remember just having a feeling and a sense of pride and gratitude that I had finally come to the last year of schooling. I also remember the excitement, the curiosity, and also the uncertainty I had about my future and the year after matric. I definitely won't forget the anxiety and the stress and the amount of pressure and just being worried about the workload and exams and my academic performance as well. And then, of course, the sadness of finally having to leave school, having to leave a place where I felt quite safe, where a place that was familiar, a place that I enjoyed being at. Just having to finally say goodbye to teachers and having to separate from friends that I saw often. And so thinking about the matric class of 2020, I can only but imagine how hard it must be as a matriculant under the current circumstances of our country and the world at large. I would imagine that many of you must be experiencing a range of overwhelming emotions. In light of the pandemic and the lockdown, there have of course been several unforeseen and abrupt changes to your academic year. Suddenly there's so much uncertainty, there's new routines, there's no routines. There's the expectations to learn at home, to learn online, to self-learn. This is also new. It's something that's unfamiliar. It's perhaps something you've never done before. And so, of course, it can create a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern, and just a lot of discomfort as well. And then also socially, as a student, as a matriculant, you are no longer in close physical contact with your teachers and also with your friends. You may be worrying about your ability to cope independently, to work on your own. You may be worried whether you're understanding the material correctly. You may be frustrated at not, understanding or just getting things right. And many of you may also be thinking and wondering whether you will ever sit in class with your friends again, whether you'll see your teachers again. Many of you might be wondering about your matric ball. You perhaps had, you had plans, you had expectations. Some of you might have started on that planning as well. You might be concerned about whether you'll have some schools do a formal graduation, and you might be concerned whether all of that will take place as well. And these are important highlights of your schooling. It's important highlights of your matric year. And so I want to say that if you are sitting with those thoughts, if you are sitting with those feelings of anxiety, confusion, frustration, if you are thinking about things over and over, and just wondering about the outcome and how things will be, I want to assure you that it's completely valid. It's completely normal for you to be having those thoughts and to be having those feelings. Yes, they may be very uncomfortable, and you might actually just wish it away, but it's valid and it's understandable. You've never ever experienced something like this. At the beginning of your year, stepping into school, who would have imagined, that 2.5 months or 3 months into your academic career, into your final year, that something like this would happen? Nobody would have imagined this. So it's new, it's unfamiliar, and it's different. And you are completely and absolutely allowed to feel all the different emotions that you might be sitting with. And I've been speaking to lots of my friends, lots of colleagues, other parents that have children at school, and I've heard the many difficulties that people are having, and I've been thinking about the emotions that many of us are experiencing during this lockdown and during this pandemic. And I feel that it's an experience of grief and mourning. And often when we think of grief, we think that it's something that only happens when we lose a loved one to death. But no, the process of mourning can happen when we lose a pet, when we lose a job. It can happen when a relationship ends, a friendship, a romantic relationship, divorce. It can happen when we move to a different school, a different area. But it can also just be around the loss of our normal and our familiar routines. And I want to bring this back to our students, and of course, for the purpose of this talk, to our matriculants for this year. And I want to just briefly speak about a model called the grief cycle, or the stages of loss, and just some theory around this. This is a model that was developed by a psychiatrist named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she speaks about 5 stages that people experience during the mourning process, or when we grieve. And the 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I'm going to elaborate on these stages and related to the possible experiences of people, or more specifically our matrics. And these stages are not stages that we pass through in a very linear way. So it's not that we in denial and then we become angry and then we become sad and then it doesn't happen like that. It's a fluid process, and we can sit with denial and then we can feel very sad and we can shift back to denial and we can shift to feeling angry and we can shift back to denial, and so we can move in and out of these stages. And so I'll start off by speaking about the first stage, called denial. And denial is a defense mechanism which often results from shock. It's a sense of disbelief at what is really happening. And so it's basically denial of the reality of the situation that you may currently, or that we are currently facing. And so thinking about matriculants, for you, denial might manifest in your words or in your actions. It might be thoughts around the pandemic, and saying things like, oh, this pandemic is not that serious, or saying things like, ugh, I'm young, I'm energetic, I'm healthy, I'm not high risk, so I'll be fine. Or say things like, oh, school will open soon, this is just gonna blow over. So we're really just denying the seriousness of the situation or the reality. Another stage is anger. So this is when we have now realized what has happened. We are acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, and we can be angry for many reasons, and we can be angry at many different people or different institutions. And so you may feel angry at this disease itself. You might be angry at the government. You might be angry at the government for the lockdown. You might be angry at God. You might be angry that this is happening during um, your final year of school. You might blame others. You might be angry that you can't see your friends or that you can't continue as per normal. So those are just some of the experiences that you may feel and may think of when you're in the stage of anger. And then we also get a stage called bargaining. And so bargaining is really when you try to find easier ways to cope with the situation. So you almost, yeah, you know what the situation is, but you just try and find ways around it, um, to cope or to make it less intense. And so this might be you saying or thinking of ways in which you can physically see your friends. So you may say to yourself or to others things like, I need to see my friend, we need to study together, we need to see each other so that we can work together. And yes, of course, that may really be the need, but of course it's not allowed during this lockdown. And so you may say things like, I need to visit my friend, and I'm going to practice good hygiene. I will keep social distance. um, I'll wash my hands before I go, and I'll wash my hands when I come back, and things will be okay, you know. So it's really just, yeah, it's really just about you trying to find ways around, the situation. So that's the stage of bargaining. And then there's the stage of depression or sadness, or despair. And so many of us will experience bouts of intense sadness, feelings of despair and loneliness. Many of you might be, just craving the physical connection with your friends, with your teachers. Many of you may be really just missing school, missing the environment, missing the familiarity, um, missing the routine of going to school, and the experiences that you have within your social circle, or just being part of a larger community. For many of you, school might have been a very safe space. It might have been a space that was protective. And so there's the loss of that space, there's the loss of that safety, there's the loss of that connection that you had with other humans. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a very difficult space to be in, just experiencing that sadness and that loss of even your dreams and your expectations that you had for this year. I mean, I can imagine that you went into this year thinking this year is going to be in a certain way, and now suddenly it's not. So just the sadness and the sense of loss around those expectations. And then finally, there's the stage called acceptance. So, acceptance is when we accept the situation for what it is. We accept the reality of the situation. And so, of course, the reality is that there is a pandemic and that there's the lockdown. But it's also about accepting your own unique reality, within your home, your unique reality in terms of your academics, because we all have a shared reality, but then there's your unique reality in terms of what your home circumstances are, in terms of what your difficulties are, as a matriculant. And it's about really just trying to find ways to deal as effectively as you can with your current situation or the current reality. And I know that this is difficult, and I know that to get to a stage of acceptance can be very difficult, for you and for many of us. But again, I want to validate the feelings and the thoughts that our students might be sitting with. If you're sitting with that anxiety and that uncertainty, that sadness, that sense of loss, that anger, that confusion, that frustration, it's completely normal, it's completely valid. Yet again, it's not probably comfortable, it brings a lot of discomfort, but it's valid. You're allowed to feel that way. You've never gone through something like this before. I've never gone through something like this before. And so there's no set way for you to feel. There's no textbook, no magazine, no newspaper, no internet blog that can tell you how to feel. You're allowed to feel the way you are feeling, and that's okay. I do want to encourage you to, seek support, engage in coping mechanisms that work for you. And so engage with your friends. If you have access to your teachers, if you have access to family via social platforms like WhatsApp or email or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, connect with those people, share your concerns, share your feelings. If that's not possible, if that's not something you feel comfortable with, write, pray if that's something that works for you. But I also want to inform you that there are resources within our community that provides counseling, that provides free telephonic and free online counseling. And I mean, of course, those resources are heightened, but also strained during the lockdown. And there are two resources that I want to mention. The one is the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and they have a fantastic online supportive structure. So online you can communicate with counselors via email. They've got various Facebook platforms, but there's also telephonic counseling. And so the number for SADAG is 0800 567 567. I'll repeat that, 0800 567 567. But of course you can also find it on the internet. And then Lifeline, so they also provide telephonic counseling, and the number for Lifeline is 0861 322 322. I'll repeat it again, 0861 322 322. Okay. So that's it from me for now. All the best. Take care and God bless.